bum, bum, bum. We're live. Well, I hope we are anyway.
Hello, everybody.
How is everybody doing? Let us know that the audio's right and you can see us and hear us. I had a power cut of my own fault about half an hour ago, and I had to reset everything, including sound.
And then he had to restart his computer because I couldn't hear him. And I need to hear. I think before we go any further, because it's very important, we should address what's going on in the preview image for this video.
Okay, so Jan has repeatedly not liked the images I've picked of him, even though it's been random. So I said, right,
That's because the
make a
images are always
face.
things like,
Make a face, and I
So
will
I did.
use
I
that.
went- he went, all right, hold that. So I went, and apparently it's my best shot yet.
Yes, I'm quite happy with that. How is everybody this evening? Audio's fine. Good evening, Azrael. How are you doing?
Hello, Azrael. Hello, Melicon. Hello, Roderick. Hello, Julie. Hello, other people. Hello, everybody.
What are we going to start with this evening? So we've got 3-4 main topics.
3 or 4 main topics.
Yeah.
First off, I want to do a quick apology because my energy is going to be slightly woozy today, as you might see, probably from my little wavy hands. I've had a migraine most of the week, and I'm coming out of it now, but I'm feeling a bit whoop.
You're feeling a bit dubstep.
I'm feeling a bit whoop. Yes, it's a bit like Skrillex is in your head.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, you've not had the best week. It happens.
It happens. It's fine.
I blame the weather, you know. The weather turns, it all gets cold, and then I get all sleepy in the winter.
I had a wonderful moment so I live in this tiny village in Suffolk, like tiny. Like there are less people in this village than there were in my year in my secondary school or high school, depending where you're from. And we have a store here with a friendly man who runs the store. And I have these weird heaters in the house that only work at night, and then they store up heat for the entire day, and then they release it whether you want it or not. And then suddenly it gets the evening and there's no heat left. So luckily I have a fireplace. So I'm going to go get some firewood. And I go to the local store and I say to the man who runs the store, "Have you got any firewood?" He says, "Yes, come with me." It brings out charcoal. And I'm like, "But this is barbecue charcoal. You can't use this indoors." Like, "You can." I'm like, "But you can't. It says do not use indoors. It's dangerous." He's like, "But you could put it there." He's like, "Yes, but this is what I was looking for." He says, "What you asked for?" I'm like, "I asked for wood." And then he went,
"Oh dear.
It used to be wood." So I have no firewood in the house.
Oh dear. Yes, you do need proper wood. Don't go. Oh dear. I like Melicon's suggestion. It's not on here, but he suggested that I have an office. Someone should model me an office background so I can put it back here, so it looks like I'm in. I don't know.
Someone model him an orifice. Okay, Azrael has picked up on the thing I picked up on with your mouth being out of sync.
Is it forward or back?
Your sound is before your voice. Your sound is before the movement. So the speed of sound is faster than the speed of light, which is why everyone's noticing it.
Okay, fine. So I think I can sort that out. I will try my best. I'm going to go in and offset my audio, which is up here. I'm going to offset it by... should we go for 200 quarter of a second? So I've offset my audio now by 1/4 of a second, so it should be in sync, or it'll be even worse. Who knows?
It's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah.
Why does everything do this? I don't know. Well, it's part of the fun and games, isn't it? So if it's worse, then I'll set it to -250, and then maybe it'll be better. Is it any better? Is it any better?
I actually can't see any difference, but if you keep repeating the same thing, it's hard. So while we were testing this before the stream, Mikey had this brilliant idea. In order to see when the sound was working, he kept fiddling with it and then doing this. I was like, but how could you see which one's in sync? It's like...
Yes, if in doubt, repeat yourself, and it'll always be better.
Yeah. So we have topics to talk about, and they include new course, mag racering,
Yep.
and things. So where would you like to start, Mikey?
Let's start with one of those new courses. So let's start with mine. So I am starting now the beginning of the Big New Blender course. For those that have lifetime backing, you'll be getting access to it this week at some point. I'll give you guys a shout out. If you are a lifetime member, by the way, and you are watching at the moment, make sure you let us know so we can add you to the Discord's special lifetime member area. And the same's true of, and we'll get to it again and repeat it with any Patreon backers. We've got a special channel in there for you as well. And it was better before, Mikey.
So,
oh no.
Yeah. So a quick note on that: the Patreon will actually invite you to the right Discord channel, but the lifetime thing on Teachable won't. So we're gonna have to set up a thing where we ask everybody,
Unless we manage to get that webhook working somehow.
unless we manage to get that webhook working somehow. So yeah, let's have a quick rundown on how the blender's going, because you showed me one of the little videos. Mikey sent me a video and says, "Can you see what's different about this?"
Yeah.
And the best I could come up with was, "You're wearing a different shirt." So, Mikey, what's different about it?
Yes. Well, that particular video, one of the first ones in there. So the first section is going to be pretty obvious for most people who have used Blender before. It's complete beginner stuff, all about getting it installed, how and where you can get it from. I actually have multiple installations on my computer of Blender, and you may find that useful if you're toying around with new things but don't want to destroy your old setup. So we'll go through all of those type of bits of setup as well, which should be a lot of fun to do. And the particular video I did was like just get started. Most people who you see on forums, etc., they have some hesitation in starting, and ultimately they start asking, "Can my computer run Blender? And why don't you just download it and blooming try the thing?" You know. So that's what the first video is about. But it was quite almost like a monologue. So I decided to use a script to do it, and I was asking Jan, "Did you see that I was reading from a script?" And he couldn't. And I always worry about if I'm reading from a script, you can see, like, obviously I'm not reading like that, but you can see the eyes go backwards and forwards. And I personally noticed that, and I find it a bit unnerving. I couldn't see it.
That's the thing I usually notice. I usually notice the reading voice.
Yeah.
So you'll get things like, "Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in. Let's
yes.
talk about Blender."
Not quite that bad. I use sticking to versions. So now much worse. Okay, I've taken to letting the eyes going out of focus. Ah, yes. Are you sticking to the its version? Oh, the LTS version. I misread that. So no, I'm going to do this on Blender 2.91 and onwards. The reason for that is by the time the course is complete, 2.9 will be the 2.93 will be the long-term supported version.
Oh, is that what LTS stands for?
Yeah. Long-term support.
I knew that.
So Blender's now following, if you've not caught up with the news, they're following a more sort of a Linux type distribution or standard distribution where you have 2 years of support on a long-term service or long-term support one, which is why we're going to start from 2.91 onwards. If I was to do 2.83, it would literally not be the right version by the time the course comes around to it. And with all of the different things that I want to include, especially the geometry nodes that they've just started in 2.92 alpha, those look really exciting, but they're not ready yet. So by the time we get to the more advanced topics, it'll be bang on the mark. And none of the early stuff, please, Blender Foundation, don't change some fundamentals on me. But yeah, any of the really early stuff, that will be hopefully solidified anyway. And once you can do basic modeling and from there onwards, basic texturing, materials applications, it's the more advanced stuff that I really want to have a lot of fun with.
So you don't have
providing
any
it's
fun.
working. I hope they fix Manta. Manta Flow is their physics smoke liquid simulation, and it is a wee bit dodgy at the moment. It takes ages to compute. You might as well go and buy a copy of Houdini because it'll save you so much time. Something that happens in Houdini in a couple of minutes would take a couple of hours easily in Blender, which is really unfortunate. But if they manage to nail down the performance on that, it'll make such a big difference to.
And part of that as well is at this stage is no
Part of it too,
point
yeah.
in learning a workflow if there's a good chance they're going to change it.
Definitely, yes. I mean, I'm up for
We
learning
had
a new
this earlier
workflow.
today when we were looking at using material IDs in Substance Painter, which is absolutely a thing you can do and something I've never tried to do before. And
Yeah.
my existing workflow just doesn't work like that. So there was a frustrating half an hour while I'm sulking and poking at the thing until eventually I figure out how it's working, while Mikey is trying
We'll
very
show
hard not to laugh.
we will show you more about that in a
Yeah.
bit. So, yes, I made everything selected. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely having a long-term
You should
support
read those
version.
out loud because otherwise we don't
Yeah.
know what you're responding to.
Yeah, that's true. Makes it simpler for content creators having a long-term support each year for them to focus on. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It means I mean I still use the Steam installation I've got is Blender 2.89 point no 83.9 I think it is. It's the latest version of the long-term support.
I didn't
So
know
that
you can
any
get Blender on Steam.
yes, but there are downsides to your project automatically updating.
Yep.
So again, in the
Fido
course,
products.
I go through all the details of how to get that installed using that particular setup.
Speaking of new fun features, have you happened to see any of the new features Games from Scratch was showing on God of 4?
I haven't. Is that one of the
So,
recent videos?
yeah, over the last week, he took a quick look at the changes coming to 2D lighting.
Oh, I've seen the thumbnail. That looked good.
Directional lighting now works in 2D, which is very interesting. So you can set up a little occlusion, not
Oh.
collusion, occlusion shape, and then move a directional light around, and all the shadows will move with it.
So we were
So
playing with this a couple of months back, like maybe 6 or 7 months ago. We put normal maps onto our 2D objects. So you can actually have light changes in a scene, which is great for adding ambience. It's great for storytelling as well because you can turn lights out and they are,
right.
even though it's a
So now
2D
you can
scene, it
add
works.
for every sprite or texture, you can add
Yeah.
an albedo, a specular, and a normal, which you could do before if you made a material. But on top of that, we can now use directional light as opposed to just spotlight or just omnilight.
That is awesome.
Yep. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means you could basically have the sun or something like it in a 2D game
Yeah.
and have all the shadows move properly with it.
That's a big game changer in terms of fidelity. That'd be really awesome. And God of 4 is something we'll be focusing on when it's ready.
When it's ready, or at least when it's ready enough. It looks very interesting. Well, it looks really fantastic, but
Yeah.
as yet, it's
So
not stable.
I downloaded it the other day and compiled it and opened it up and started to map the controllers, and that was broken in that build.
Yep.
So I spent 2 hours getting it ready and about 30 seconds going, I can't do what I wanted to do in this, which is
So
infuriating, but it's
there is a
alpha.
nightly build of God of 4 that you can download and compile. You
Yeah.
have to compile it yourself. It's not like the live version of God of War, where it's just download and go. But it's there so that you can play with it, test new
Yeah.
features. It's not product ready or project ready. Do not try and make a new game with this because any of the features you use might radically change tomorrow.
Say we're Blender 2.92 at the moment. It's in alpha. Don't open your previous files and save. Take a copy if you want to play with them. It's really
Yep.
important.
I've got too far
Otherwise,
back. Haven't
stuff breaks. Yes,
I?
you've leaned all the way back.
So yeah. Meanwhile, I've started recording on Canopy Cars. Lifetimers will get access to the first few videos in the next day or two, probably. And then I'm guessing the actual course will go live for everyone else probably next week at this rate. And it was interesting because we mentioned last week, would you guys rather I walk you through how to get these assets and make them ready yourself and all the things you have to do, or do you just want the assets? And most of you are just like, no, just give me the assets. Like, don't make me go through this boring work. But then I realized, well, someone is going to want to take some other tiles or other vehicles and is going to run into some problems.
Yeah.
So what I did was I did the traditional, hey everybody, welcome to the course. Hello, you wonderful Godot people. My name is Yam. Blah 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 blah. Here's the game. Here's the essential
Assets?
experience. Thank you. And the next video, here are the assets. Here's how you can install them. Here's how you get the materials working. But the one after that is a bonus video. I'm calling it a bonus video because you can skip it, but it's basically if you're bringing in the assets yourself and you want to do them a little differently, or you want to go through a
Yeah.
process, here's the things you want to look out for. And one of the things that really tripped me up, it took me about 2 days to figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
was to do with the wheels. Because Kenny does really good work. He does a lot of work. He doesn't use Godot primarily. I mean, he's played with it a few times, but he works in Unity. And he's making free assets. Like, he's going to get the thing out and then just move on to the next one. He supports his old stuff. He's very good like that, but he's got other things to do.
Yeah.
But any of the large vehicles' wheels, he's taken this weird shortcut. He hasn't taken the wheel and rotated it. He's taken the wheel and then inverted it. So on the large vehicles, all the wheels on the left-hand side have a scale of -1, which is fine. You have a scale of -1. It's weird. God, I can just handle it. But if you then say, okay, I'm going to place a vehicle wheel as a child of that, and it'll inherit those properties, and now let's reorder it, and haha, it's in the right place, and then you start driving. These two wheels face that way, and these two face that way, and you go forward and you spin.
And you won't know what's going on because you've just
really
added a wheel.
Because they look fine, but yeah. So it's things like that. How to do that, how to bring in the tiles, just the kinds of things you'll be looking out for.
So, and can everybody play the demo at the moment?
The demo is, yep, it's still up there. It's good to go. I can relink it if you like.
I'm just going to
search. It's probably a bad idea if I do that, because if I go to itch, I'll lose my internet connection.
Yeah, that's really weird how that happens for you. Yeah, I'll sort that out. I'll post the link for it in a second.
I haven't seen, as well, it says Games from Scratch did a nice Godot Steam API video. Haven't seen that particular video, but I do like his videos. He does some excellent stuff.
So this is the prototype game. It's fun. It's rewarding. It is a little bit skill based, but not as much as Mag Racer.
With multiple people yet? Because you said you were going to, and I think you've forgotten.
I forget things. Hi,
yeah, that's fine.
I'm name Mike.
So the most I've seen this played with is 2 people. I'd love to hear experiences for people playing this with 3 or 4. Because I've designed this so you're all crunched around the same keyboard, kind of in each other's way. And that's kind of the essential experience. That's what I'm going for. Right? That's as much the game as what's happening on the screen. But of course, I can't check for balance because I live with 2 cats and they don't have opposable thumbs. And they're
a bit rubbish at games. Yeah.
I mean, they're good at certain games, like make Yan go to the bathroom and switch the tap on and off 5 times in a minute.
Yeah, but no good at computer games.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I'd love to hear people's experiences with that. It does also work with controllers, but very few people have 4 controllers plugged into a PC. But if you do,
does it work with 4 separate controllers? I don't think I've got that many free USB ports, but that might stop the World War III.
But I kind of wanted to make the World War III.
Maybe. So yeah, that's lots of fun. If you've not tried it out yet, give it a download, try it out. Let us know what you think. Any feedback? The one thing that we can't really easily adjust at the moment was because the scale of the tiles. If I'm right in saying, because we had to scale it up slightly, the curbs are quite high. So some of the vehicles, if you're driving around, they will go boop.
Tiles to make a grid map. A grid map is, if you know what a tile map is, it's that in 3D. And if you don't, we have a single node that has a bunch of tiles in it, and then you use them to paint with. So you'll paint your level, and it'll say, this looks like that, has this collision. Here we go, we're ready to go. Great way of making levels and tracks. But I'm using tiles made by one person and cars made by Kenny, and the scale's different on both.
Yeah.
So to solve it, I just scaled the grid map up so that it fits. And that means the curb is really high because you have to scale on all 3 axes, otherwise you get this weird squashed level.
Which means that just like in real life, a Formula 1 car will clip the curb and it would break the car.
Yeah, and go flying. It was really interesting actually when I spent a good few hours a few weeks back going through, just looking up the average weights of these cars and putting them in and realizing I had to change a whole bunch of other factors to make them work right. Like a garbage truck, turns out, is a lot heavier than most tractors. But then when I did it and you played, the Formula 1 car just goes flying whenever I hit something. It's like, yeah. Have you ever seen Formula 1? Like, they're made of fiberglass.
It's really weird, isn't it? How a game warps your perception of the world and how you expect it to behave.
Yep.
The moment you start using real world physics, the game changes. It changes its behavior considerably. It becomes a completely different beast. And suddenly you're like, yeah, actually, Formula One cars are fast, they are fragile, and you can't mount a
Well, the only
curb in a
reason they
Formula One
grip
car.
to the ground like that, from what I understand, is the angle of the spoiler means the air is constantly pushing them down.
Yeah,
If you didn't have that, they would take off.
they do. If they get flipped up, sometimes they do go all the way over.
So yeah, but I'm really looking forward to it. There's a bunch of fun things in that game, and the version I'm doing for the course will be a lot more streamlined and elegant than the code I've got in the demo. You guys can't see the code I've got in the demo, but we'll be doing things like vehicle template. So we make a single vehicle template, and then all other vehicles come from that, which means we just need to tweak the parameters for each one. Like the wheels are here, they're
That's
this
awesome.
shape, this mesh, and good to go. As opposed to what I've got, which is 16 different vehicles all using the same script, except for the ones that don't.
Yep. So a much more streamlined approach. And again, this is one of the downsides of prototyping, is you often just get to the end point as quickly as you can. When it comes to teaching something, it often takes a lot longer, because I don't know about you, Jan, but when I'm teaching, occasionally I teach one lecture and it ends up being 4 or 5 different points. I'm like, this is why it's difficult to teach, because it's too complex.
Sometimes when I'm teaching larger games, I'll find myself saying things like, that doesn't feel right now, but don't worry, we'll come back to that. And I actually get pushback on that, which is, if you're teaching me, please don't teach me something that doesn't work, which I think is kind of fair, to be honest. Like, yeah, okay, I'll look at that a bit better. Look at that a bit better. Yeah, fine, we'll go with that. That's the phrase.
That's usually me as the English good person. Yeah, it's really difficult to get that balance just right. Of, don't worry about it for the moment, because that really irritates me when I'm trying to learn something. It's like, no, don't do what high school science did to me and say, we're going to teach you a lie at the moment, and then when you do A levels, we'll teach you a different lie.
I actually had a bunch of debates with my GCSE physics teacher. GCSEs are the exams you take when you're 16 in England,
Yeah,
in Britain, I think. Because he'd say things like, the electrons go in the opposite direction of the current. I'd say, why? He'd say, you don't need to know that. Like, but I don't understand it. How am I supposed to memorize it if I don't understand it? He says, if you take it at undergrad, we'll teach you. But I want to know now. Which point he said, I think you should take religious studies or philosophy, because that's a philosophy question. Like, the why isn't really something we can teach you at this level. So I did.
I fully get it. They're not equipped at that point in time to help out. I've suffered this when it comes to trying to learn shader code. It is difficult, because all of the teaching relies on you already having some degree level in maths, which is, it was like, hang on a minute, this is not fair. I want to learn this skill.
Well, this
Yes,
is
it
why,
requires maths, but how do I get to that point?
back
There's
when
no
you and I
path
first
for it.
started working together in a previous company, and I was trying to work on 3D games, I was finding my lack of math skills, depending
Yeah.
on which country you're in, actually quite difficult. Because a lot of the tutorials I was looking at were assuming knowledge I didn't have.
Hmm.
So when people would say things like, oh, it's just a vector, it's like, that's the bad guy in Despicable Me. I don't know how to apply that.
Yes, exactly, Jelly. 1 + 1 is a window. I
Exactly.
wish more people would understand that joke. Been saying it for years, and it only gets a little bit more difficult when you start talking about matrix multiplication, which does happen in shader code, and I'm sitting there going, right, and
I
it's
didn't even like the
difficult.
first Matrix movie. I don't want them to multiply.
They're doing a fourth one, Jan. They're doing a fourth one. So,
Why?
and you can watch it straight away. You don't have to go to an infected cinema, which is great.
Or I could not watch it straight away and feel much better about my life. Sorry,
Very
I
true.
did not enjoy that franchise. But anyway, I'm in a minority. Everyone's like, oh, the first one was good. No, it wasn't. It was pretty. That's a different thing.
Yes. I And that's what I've been doing with shader stuff. I'm not in a position yet where I could teach it, but I'm very close to being in that position because of the background knowledge that I've had to go through. So I've been doing a lot of reversing in my learning. I get to a point, I'm understanding it. I've made something pretty because it's shaders, usually just a representation of an equation. Yay! And then I'm like, oh, I need to learn something new. So you go off and learn this other thing and come back again and go off and learn another thing. And it can be a very slow progress. But I think I'm getting the hang of it now.
Yeah.
Slowly.
And Melicon is mentioning dot products and normalization. Yeah, exactly that. Like when I was 15, I was somebody who the maths that I understood, I was very good at. So I could get algebra because that made sense in my brain. But trigonometry, I didn't understand what these terms were. So I couldn't remember how to apply them.
Mm.
So we were told you type this number and then you press tan on your calculator and it gives you the answer. It was like, what is tan? Why am I using that? Like, I know when to use sine, cosine, and tangent, but I don't know what they mean. So, sure enough, 25 years later, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately no clue. So, I'm now getting to the point where every few weeks, someone will explain dot product to me, and I'll remember it for about an hour.
I suffered that at school with being
Oh, Paco.
taught how to do something rather than why it happens. And I know some people have been taught the fundamentals. So if you've got the fundamental skills, you can always roll back to them. It takes you longer, but I learned shortcuts basically. I learned shortcuts of how you do things like derivatives where you take like 2x squared becomes I don't know 4x was it if you derive it? I can't remember because it's
No,
been
yeah.
ages. Maybe. But also, it's one of these crazy things where now I understand that the maths is important. It's really frustrating having not been taught any practical applications. Like, actually, this pure mathematics has real world consequences, especially in the computer era. Which, to be fair, in the early 90s wasn't really a thing, kind of. So, you know,
Yep.
I was taught maths for a very fast paced environment, and nowadays it's just phenomenal what can be done. And
But what was great is I used to work in corporate finance, and I could do that part of the work fine.
yeah,
But, like, ask me to move an object in 3 dimensions and then make it turn, and I fall to pieces. I mean, I'm better now, but that's mostly because I've learned recipes. So,
and Jelly
um,
makes. I was going to say, Jelly makes a fantastic point here that when you team up with someone who's got the skills you don't, you can work together and actually achieve something much greater than you can do individually.
which is actually how we started working together in Canopy Cars. Canopy
Exactly.
Cars? No.
Canopy
Gotta guess away.
Games.
Gotta guess
Yeah,
away. Canopy Games, Canopy Cars. We should do a racing game.
you reckon? I think we've got too many of them.
And you have to.
I think we need a long, hard look at ourselves and go, neither of us play racing games that often. Why are we making
We should
racing
make more of
games?
them. Well, they're a great way of showing fast-paced gameplay. Like, that's one reason to do them. I think pure
Yeah.
math is fun, Pagosh. I'm just not great at it. Next time you tier it, yeah. Well, so Jessica, this is a point I've made in the past, which is when I was younger, a lot of my classmates were saying, "When am I ever going to use, um, well, algebra, for
Yeah.
example?" And like, well, if you want to make computer games, you'll use it daily because if you don't understand how to move, or calculus is another great example, if you don't understand how to move things through space and then turn them, it's very hard to explain it to a computer.
Yeah. Very much
I
so.
remember Bastian when he was writing his the first pass of the AI code for Mag Racer, and it looked like magic to me.
Yeah, and that's a very good point here that when we're learning maths, it's about problem solving. But that's not outlined, or certainly maybe I didn't get it. Perhaps it was outlined and it just didn't click with me with the teacher at the time. Because I know that having a great teacher does make a big difference to how a student will learn.
So, yes, and now I'm going to education theory. I might geek out for a second. I'm sorry.
Sit back, guys, and relax. Jan's in his prime.
The research indicates that there are several predictors for success for a student, and one of the main ones, well, okay, two of the main ones are self-belief and interaction. Self-belief would be the idea that I am physically able to do this. So if I start a course, an example for this would be I decided not to take French when I was 13. I took German because I'm fluent in French and I wanted to learn something else. My father was furious, by the way. He's like, you should take French. No, I want to learn a new thing. However, my grades were high enough in French that they put me in the top level class for German with all the kids who were fluent, and I couldn't speak any German. I had a miserable year. I learned nothing because I got in and immediately realized I can't do this, so I couldn't. Which is why you get that thing where, participation trophies are a great example of this, where teachers are trying to instill the idea that your contribution is valuable, you can get that. Another of the prime indicators for success is the idea that the teacher has your back. The teacher is actually interested in you succeeding, and what they're doing is trying to support what you're doing. There are other major indicators like access to resources, it not being hungry at school, things like that, computer at home, someone to help you with your homework. But two of the main ones are belief that you can do this and belief that your educator has your back. What's interesting is very early on, most students find one teacher they click with, and that becomes their best subject. And that kind of speaks to what you're talking about with, like, I didn't have the right teacher in math. Mike and I have both worked with Ben Tristan, and Ben used to say to me all the time that he never got into English, and so he doesn't value it now. Which is interesting because when we first started going to school, he had a different English teacher and a different math teacher than I did, and I just couldn't get into maths. We grew up together. I could do humanities easily. Like I could, word good, like I am now. But numbers just no.
Well, live speaking is a completely different skill, so we can let you
I mean,
off
I
there.
could do it if I need to. Like, if I really have to, I can explain how, when pushed, I can spin words like lace or wield them like a broadsword. But it just felt funnier to words good.
I can't get away with that as much because I often end up in a pickle myself.
I feel like I monologued nicely there.
Yes, that was awesome. So we've had a few comments coming in since then.
Yep, that's what I'm scanning for. Do you want to take over comments?
So yeah, that was the thing at school at Azrael Studios. I enjoyed physics and maths, but never saw the need for it. And now you're using it daily. Yeah, I feel that completely. It's crazy how things you don't.
I mean, if you guys look at
for.
the beginning of the year, I did a speech at GoddoCon on making tutorials, and I go into education theory a little bit. And one of the things I talk about is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And the studies tell us that you retain information and master information that is intrinsic as opposed to extrinsic. And that is stuff that you want to learn for its own sake. Like, this is just fascinating, so you want to learn it. Which is why a lot of people like me get into history when they're adults, because you start learning this fascinating stuff. But at school, you're doing it because you have to. The problem with that is it's very hard to get someone intrinsically motivated for something. You can get a child extrinsically motivated. Do this or you're in trouble. If you do well, I'll buy you a car. Do this or I'll set fire to your favorite toy. Do this or your friends will laugh at you. These are extrinsic motivations. They're not do this because maths is fascinating. If you, as a 10-year-old child, think maths is fascinating, the old guy, you'll do well at maths.
Definitely.
Did you get to the gimbal lock yet? Yes, the gimbal lock is great. Luckily, I'm not using it for a 3D racing game.
So yeah, mathematics is very important in machine learning. I can understand that. If you're teaching a computer to do something, you're going to have to do some math stuff in there. Central and functional programming. Interestingly, I've been told that I'm a very good functional programmer in the past. So perhaps something is sinking in and clicking. Who knows? So I want to touch on the gimbal lock. That's always a very interesting one. For those who don't know, it's if you're rotating on X, Y, and Z by itself. If you rotate 90 degrees on Z and then rotate 90 degrees again, you end up in a position where rotating on two of those axes results in the same rotation. It will happen if you try and export something into Unity from Blender and don't have your not transforms applied, but it's something extra that you need to do either manually or with a tick box with the FBX export. And if you don't have that, it will basically gimbal lock itself. But gimbal lock is a real thing in real life as well.
Yes.
It's
That's where it
space
comes
travel.
from. Well, do gimbals on
Yeah.
on bomber planes. Pagosh,
Exactly,
switch
yeah.
to Quaternions or matrices for rotation. Yeah, I am actually fascinated by Quaternions in the same way, and for much the same reason, I'm fascinated by quantum mechanics, which is to say, it's well beyond actually understanding what's going on, but it's a
Yeah.
fascinating look at what I think reality is can be described in a completely different way.
With Quaternions, I can humbly say that you're probably, unless you're writing the actual code that's using Quaternions, you will be fine learning how to use them, not necessarily needing to understand the nuts and bolts of how they do it. And there was some great, I think 3 blue, 1 brown, or 3 brown, 1 blue. I can't remember what his channel
There were a
is.
bunch of colors in there.
Yeah, there are a bunch of colors in his channel, but he describes it incredibly well. And I'm like, cool, I kind of get that. But unless you're doing the deep level programming, you don't need to know how it's kind of working. You just need to know that Quaternions solve the gimbal lock problem.
Yep.
Which is
I am
really
reminded
useful.
of a few years back when I was working in a summer camp, and there was a kid who he was there for a week. He'd been there for a day, didn't know anyone. He came and sat next to me. The kid was 8 years old, very quiet. He's sitting there. He puts his lunch down. He's doing this for like 10 minutes solid, and he looks up at me and says, "Jan, does the Heisenberg uncertainty principle mean that we can never accurately measure absolute zero?" Yeah, that's exactly. Can we protect this child, please? Like, if you're interested at that age and you think this is in your grasp, statistically, you'll do very well. I mean, there's a lot of other issues, like
Yeah. And
the kid
Melicon
having
hit.
enough to eat, and there's enough money at home that people aren't afraid, and things like that. But there's
Yeah. And Melicon's just nailed it on the head there. Quaternions work because they're four-dimensional stuff. So they work because of a dimension that we can't see, and which is why they're conceptually very hard to work out and manage.
Yeah, it's like
because yeah, exactly. It is a hypersphere that you're moving a point on a four-dimensional sphere, which is why they work.
Yeah. And at that point, my brain immediately goes to, I'll take your brain to another dimension.
Pay close attention.
For those of you too young to understand what's going on right now, ask your grandparents. Chris Goddard says 3 square roots of -1. See, that just sounds like gardening.
3 square roots of -1. Awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about Mag Racer, because Mikey has started work on. I think I killed him. Mikey, can I have your stuff? No.
No.
Don't die. Mikey's been getting ready, or Mikey's made a start at reorganizing the vehicle models to be a much lower poly count, so that we can retexture them and get some better performance out of the game. And we had an interesting little experiment earlier where he had to UV unwrap the whole thing because
that was interesting. I'm just loading up Blender in the background at the moment. So
yes, Azrael, you're my age. Like I happen to know you're my age, Azrael.
I'm just going to switch over to my screen, and I need to click on another place as well. There we go. So this was the original model, and last week we were talking about it, and we've got all of these extra little bits and bobs on here that if I turn on the overlays, it is the technical term, all of these rivets that I popped on the model are icospheres, as we can see here, which led to a lot of internal geometry and back faces that were taking up a ton of stuff. And we're in Blender 2.839 here, and we can see that looking at this, we've got 71,000 faces, 81,000 triangles. So there's a lot of actual triangles, and that's these things here. So I've spent the last couple of weeks playing around with this particular craft and the Vapor as well, and just seeing what I could make of it. And in the end, it got to a point where I was just like, you know what, I need to just take the original model and simplify it. And that's what I did. I mean, fortunately, these are all separate objects, so I could do something very quick and dirty, like selecting like the main hull, like so, and just inverting, hopefully. Just inverting the selection, and then I could get rid of a lot of those extra details. And then I worked on it a bit more and started UV unwrapping it. And one of the things, or one of the issues we were having is when we were putting text and things like that, the resolution wasn't quite there. So what I've ended up doing, if I go ahead and open up Game Ready. So this is the main problem that we're having here, is the assets weren't game ready. And this is the new version in just a blue. And yes, some of it is changed shape quite significantly, but this has a far lower count. We can see here we're down to 6,290 triangles, which is a huge drop. Now, this isn't rigged or anything along those lines yet. That's still to come. But the big one was, oh, look at that. That's a lovely turquoise. Did I not save it before yeah, no, I didn't save it. Bear with me a moment. Let me link this up and give it a... Yeah, that looks a ton better. Okay, I didn't save it. Let me create myself a new material. So we were aiming for a resolution, a 2K resolution, so 2048. Let's make sure this is in here as well. Yeah, that's going to be a bit different. I was just going to call this UV for the moment. And we don't need an alpha channel, and we'll make it a colored grid so it's got numbers on. So this lovely one here. And then when we go ahead and plug that in, oh, are you really telling me I didn't save my UV unwrapping? Oh no, the power went out, of course. Oh, that's great. Okay, so we get this lovely unwrap here, which we can work on and put seams on and everything else, which I'm going to have to redo after that power cut. That's a real swear word in there. But you can see here that there's a certain resolution that works. And if I zoom right in, because I've got the texture slot here set to closest rather than linear, which tends to blur things out. If you set it to closest, you can really see the pixel definition. And then we can go through, and I'll quick and dirty unwrap this at the moment, which doesn't work for what we need to do.
You should use Revoker, and then he says recover, but I think you should use Revoker because it sounds much familiar.
Revoker, I should try that actually. Let's try last session. Nope. Or the autosaves. It might be in the autosave. So if you go to recover autosaves and have a look. Actually, that might be the one. Hey, look at that. So, yes, here we go. That's tons better. Thank you for reminding me of that feature I should know about.
So, just so we're aware, the lesson here is you should always revoke it.
Yes. But you can see this UV unwrap. Oh, I meant to do this all along, of course, so I could show the difference in UV unwraps. Quick and dirty unwrap. Yes. But this moving swiftly on, this shows a really nice, even though it's slightly twisted, who cares?
I
shows
I have to paint it.
It won't matter when it's painted. But yeah, it shows a really nice unwrap in terms of where seams are, etc. This is a really useful ship, and this is really cut down. So the final version here was 6,254. I removed some extra geometry from it as it went together. So this is such a better game ready model that can now go into Mixer or Substance Painter and actually have some smart materials applied to it. We're going to still go down that route with Mag Racer rather than just a Blender only workflow or anything like that. We're going to use the tools that are quickest for us to make. And a special shout out to Melicon because he and I have been chatting in the background, and I'm using the bevel modifier applied to it with weighted normals, which really helps define these shapes. If I put it onto the really shiny version, so the matte cap red that everybody loves showing off. Oh, it still turns
red.
I know, right? Why is it red? I don't know. Oh, because I'm looking through? No. Who knows why that's gone red? I'm not going to troubleshoot at the moment. Instead, I'm going to show you us lovely folks again. Whoop. Where's us? There's us.
There was an interesting moment though where he got the original unwrapper and he gave it to me, and we're looking at it together. And at first, I'm trying to sort out how to get the texture ID workflow going in Substance Painter, which is doable, but it's not something I've done before. So I'm trying to relearn the fly, and then we realize that the UV has fuzzy edges. So when putting materials in, we'd get little bleed through, which is not what we're after. So he had to redo the mapping for that. The problem, so quick and dirty unwrapping is fine for the prototype stuff or background stuff.
Yeah.
But when you start dealing with high poly or high detail vehicles, that unfortunately means you have to go in and fix it all.
I found it, by the way, just to show people here. Material, object. It was bringing the object stuff across rather than... Sorry, it was bringing the material base color across, which is why it ended up dark blue. Anyway, back to me.
Back to you.
So there's Azrael Studios. Please add Armor Paint to the list for FOSS. Yes. I'd like to have a closer look at Armor Paint. I'm going to save, by the way, my work before I close Blender. Yeah, I'd love to do a deeper look into Armor Paint as a course. I'm going to focus on, obviously, the Blender stuff. Jan's focused on Canopy cars for the moment. Meep, meep. So after that's out and done and dusted, so Q1, 2 next year for me. I'm not going to say Jan's timescales because he will not like. Okay, by the end of the year for you.
No, I wasn't saying you should. I was like, don't go yet. Like,
no. So that'll be done when it's ready. Sort of end of Q1, I should imagine, for the Blender stuff, lining up perfectly with the Blender Foundation's timeline for releasing stuff. So some of it will be dependent on that. So if I want to teach geometry nodes, for instance, then we're going to be in a position to do it, providing it's ready. Incidentally, I have one person on board already who's going to help out with the Blender course. So that's fantastic. And actually, I didn't get to speak to the other person over the weekend. They were doing some finals, some exams and stuff, so they couldn't help out at the time, but I'll give them a shout later on, actually, after this.
And nope, it's gone. Oh no, I was going to say a thing and it went away.
Where did it go?
Where'd it come from?
Cotton Eye Joe. Of course, I didn't sing the actual song because of copyright and stuff.
Because you forgot it.
Yeah.
No, it's still gone. Huh. That's weird. Mikey, have you been playing anything this week?
Have I been playing anything this week? I had an awesome session on Thingy, and then
Apex Legends?
Yeah, that's the one. So I like my first-person shooters, and I managed to play with Bass, actually. I was testing out Apex Legends with my new shiny mouse mat and mouse, and it turns out that proper control interfaces help massively with gameplay.
Yep.
Turns out that just using your desk means that you can't line up sniper shots at all. I'm surprised I managed to do it in the past.
A mouse as well.
Yeah. True. And it really does come across, things like Blender. If you're trying to use just a trackpad because you've only got a laptop, not having a 3-button scroll wheel mouse, really, really does impede your progress. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say the same's true. If you're starting off with sculpting, sure, just use a mouse. But shortly afterwards, you will definitely realise having a stylus of some sort, even if it's a separate thing. I'm looking around to see if I can grab my one, but even if it's one that's not got a screen connected and stuff, that really helps with being able to see what you're doing on screen.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been playing a bit of Apex Legends, a bit more of Cloud Punk. I love the aesthetic of the game. It really makes me want to do a proper in-depth tutorial on Pixie something. I can't remember what it's called now.
Pixie something.
I've got Pixelmator in my head, but that's a 2D pixel program. I'm thinking of a 3D one called Magic of
Pixel.
Voxel.
Yeah,
Magic
not
of
Pixel.
Voxel.
Yeah, Magic of Voxel is a great program.
And all of the assets, from my understanding, for Cloudpunk have been made in that, and I'm blown away by the fidelity of it. To be quite honest, I know it's a lot of it is in your mind that you're generating extra content essentially, but the
But
actual
that's the
outcome of it
point
was
of that
great.
aesthetic. I mean, it's the same as pointillism, where you're. Oh, what's going on here? My computer started moving things. Where you're filling in the detail.
Yeah, very much so. I have also been playing. So if I still playing my Project Zomboid. If there's anybody out there who wants to play with me, it'd be awesome to try. It's a very slow paced game, and you will die lots. We were talking about roguelikes earlier, weren't we?
Tempted by Barotrauma this week because I saw it was on sale,
Ooh.
and I watched some playthroughs. I'm like, I don't know. This sounds like a much slower and less interactive version of Pulsar, which we used to play.
Yes. So it's really weird. So I'm a big fan of games that hurt you and are difficult and unfair. So a lot like playing Nightmare Mode on Doom, for instance, where you open the first door and you're a goner. I like playing games on difficult settings for I don't know why it is, to be quite honest, because other games I will play on story mode. So The Last of Us, for instance, when I was playing through that, I definitely played it on the hardest setting until I couldn't progress any further because of a blooming autosave. The game auto-saved as I
I
was in a
have
horde of
found a
zombies.
lot of first-person RPGs, especially things like Bioshock in all its incarnations, Outer Worlds.
Yeah,
The default difficulty levels, even the hard difficulty levels, are quite easy.
I
Like you
suppose
really
if
have to put it in nightmare mode with serious penalties because I grew up in an era where games like the original Deus Ex and so on were punishing and you had to just overcome it.
yeah.
But you can't make a multi-million-dollar game where 80% of your player base is going to play it through for 2
Apart from
minutes, get
Dark Souls,
punished. And you're like, yeah, but that's a very, very niche game that
yeah.
exploded. But the conventional wisdom is if you're spending $65 million on a game and it's taken 5 years to make, and 80% of your player base gets 2 minutes in and decides they're not playing anymore, gets a refund, you're in real trouble.
So this harks back to Mag Racer in some ways because Mag Racer has a skill. It has a certain skill level that you have to get before you can even race around the track. And if that just doesn't click with you for whatever reason, you'll bin the game,
When
which
my
is a
girlfriend
shame.
first started playing it, and her big shining moment was she made the first lap.
Yes,
And that was like a real like celebratory moment. And it is the first time you make it through. Yeah, that's very much, but that's also because we
we played.
misunderstood how games like Wipeout work and then realized that what we had was something we enjoyed. So let's just double down on it.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a question to you guys out there. What sort of games do you like? Not in terms of specific games or not necessarily genres, but in terms of accessibility. That's what we're talking about here, isn't it? There are some games that on their hardest setting are just not accessible. Sometimes on their easiest setting are just not accessible.
I mean, personally, I can't stand playing games like I see the value of them, but I can't stand playing games like Super Meat Boy. That pixel perfect instant reaction and just die and die and die and die and die and die and okay, now next level, die and die. Like I just don't get that, but I see why people do.
That's almost again like a skill based thing, isn't it? That you've got to get it perfect every time.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been playing a lot more Noita again this week. I got back into it.
That was phenomenal.
And like a lot of roguelikes, I mean, it seems most roguelikes by nature try and be unfair. Like at one run, you might get the perfect storm of equipment and
Yeah.
so on that just means, okay, this is a lot of fun. But the next 8 will just kill you in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too. Challenge is good. I mean, it really depends on what I'm in the mood for. I tend to enjoy games that can build stuff, especially if I'm with other people.
I mean, Speedrunners is a really fun game that we've not actually played in a while, but it is one of those games that if you're new to it and you've got a lot of experienced people playing, because we all started playing around the same time. I think you started maybe a week or two previous. You're like, you got to get this game. It's lots of fun, and I'm like, okay. So we all played it together, but you could see that if someone had learnt the level, they'd just be able to win every single time. There was no luck involved. It was pure skill.
Mm.
And there were some really infuriating moments. The verticality of the game meant that if someone got down a chute quickly, for whatever reason, they would win that particular round, which was really infuriating. But it was something to watch out for. You know, if you know that part of the level, if you're not with the leader, you're going to get knocked out, essentially.
I mean, it's one of the things about skill-based games is they're very hard to balance.
Definitely, yeah.
Because there is no way of balancing someone has been playing this for 3 weeks more than you, or just has the free time to be practicing every day, and then you come in together and you get.
I suppose going back to Mag Racer again, it's more of a simulation because of the physics driving it than it is a Wipeout clone, more like an arcade game. And I could see that if you had a racing simulator, I can't remember the one that a lot of people use. I don't know, like Project Cars 2 or something like that, where you can have a simulation mode that has tire wear and everything else. But also, if you put your foot down, all you do is you spin the tires or spin into the wall, because that is realistic. So there's a ceiling at which you just have to cope with the level of skill required. DCS World is something that I am really excited to try out. Oh, exciting moment. So Karine, my partner, and I were chatting the other day, and we ended up talking about VR. And we saw that I've seen some great reviews of the Quest 2, in spite of its creepiness of data it can collect on you. But yeah, whatever. So that'll be arriving at Christmas. So I'm really looking forward to playing some games in VR, especially the bigger hits like Alex, etc., and Squadrons and flight games in general. I think Elite Dangerous in VR is going to be much more compelling than just playing it on the flat screen. I think having a more immersive world will actually mean I play the game and don't get tired of it.
I was just thinking in board games, one of the things you do when you're making a family game where you're getting young children with adults is randomness. It's why things like Candyland are so much more fun for children than they are for adults, because it's so random. There is a good chance a 5-year-old will beat the adult. But for an adult, I'm not playing this game. And I don't mean I refuse to play this game. I mean, this game is playing itself. I have made no decisions here. I'm just pulling the card up and there I go.
I got turned off a little of D&D back a few years ago. So I had never played it as a child. I played games like Warhammer, but it would really, really irritate me that you would. I remember this one game where it was you set up your scene and everything. We put a river through the middle of the map, and I was a sniper. And if I rolled a 5 or a 6, the enemy would be dead instantly. And there was like a squad of 12 versus me. And I rolled 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s for literally half an hour. And that wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. I'm like, I'm an elite sniper, or am I not? You know, what's going on here? I'm yes, a very much incompetent elite sniper. But it was really frustrating because there There was no control. There was no authority that I had over the game at all. It was almost as if I was playing with a weighted
It's a really
dice.
interesting game from the 80s called Tales of the Arabian Nights. It's a board game, and it's very much a storytelling game. So you go off and have these huge adventures.
Yeah.
And I got very frustrated with it because it's entirely possible to get imprisoned in that game. And then you have to sort of try and figure out how to get out of the prison, but it's completely random. So in one game, I spent an hour and a half in prison, unable to get out, because every turn the answer would be different. So it's just random,
Yeah.
while everyone else having adventures. They're saying, this game is great. It's like, I've literally done nothing.
Stunts was fun back in the
Yep.
90s.
Yep. And the original Prince of Persia was very good. Yep.
I came in when it went 3D with Prince of Persia. I never played the original, but it was very awesome how they. I've watched a couple of documentaries on the making of it and how they inverted the character so it actually went on the memory.
Well, they didn't just
Amazing.
convert it, they shifted him.
Yeah.
So it just took one extra byte because it was all the memory they had available. Which I think is really smart.
Which I've found in the past when I've been composing music or making something in Blender for that matter, I'm far more creative with a limited tool set than I am if I've got a million instruments to pick from or sounds or whatever.
This is one of the basic piece of advice people give with creativity is restrictions are a framework.
Yes, very much so.
You get real choice paralysis, but don't see I only have 3 instruments as a cage. It's not a cage, it's a building scaffold. Right? This is the system I have. Now what can you do with it?
Yeah. I suffered from that lots when I was little, because when I say little, I'm like I don't know, between the ages of 16 and 20, that sort of age, when I had a couple of years ago, not a couple of decades, not quite, but anyway,
for me.
But yeah, I'd managed to get my hands on an instrument pack, and all I'd do for that sort of session, sat down, so I'd realise that all I'd done was I'd sit down and I'd play like 1,000 sounds. I haven't done any composition. I haven't done anything. I've just played with toys. Now, some would say that's useful because you're getting to know the kit, but in general, it wasn't useful at all. All I did was go, "Oh, this sounds nice." I wasn't moving on with my craft.
There's something to be said for developing mastery and getting, becoming fluent in that. But yeah.
Board Game Geek. What is this?
Huh? Very seen Board Game Geek.
I shall open it up in a tab over here. I want to have a look.
I know what Board Game Geek is, but Shut Up, Sit Down is a better site. I'm just saying.
Robo Rally. Nice.
Oh, wow. Robo Rally. That takes me back.
Yeah, for some reason, when I was reading the URL, I was like, what is Rob O'Reilly? I couldn't parse it at all.
I think was that a private message you got? Because I'm not seeing that in the chat.
It's not as a link. Yeah, it's in the chat.
Where's it?
This one was really fun by Malicon. Like three messages up.
I don't see a link.
It's definitely there.
No, it's not. It just says, this one was really fun. That's all it says on my screen.
I get to see it. I'm special.
That's because it's your channel. I think you have to okay it.
Do I? No, it's not giving me anything along those lines. Never mind. It's not as a link, but it is just there. Who knows? I don't know if we've got any restrictions on the channel.
Do you have live chat or top chat? I have dead chat because I'm an aging goth.
I have live chat up. I don't think I can change that at the moment because I'm viewing the stream from the like the control panel area rather than the actual stream. But yes, dice and orange, yeah, anything with randomness, I kind of like, but I kind of don't as well.
I mean, randomness is a whole design topic by itself. But yeah. However, I think we're coming to, we've just passed the hour. So I think it's
Woohoo.
time we do the traditional. Has anyone got any questions, thoughts, comments, interpretive dances, or jingles? And the
Yes.
reason I remember that exact order is because that's how I used to close my lectures when I was a professor.
And we have everybody here. So just to recap over what we've done while you guys figure out any questions, I will be working on the first section of the big Blender course that'll be coming out for all the lifetime backers. If you're not on our Discord yet as a lifetime backer and you've backed, let us know, we can add you. But that will be available by the end of this week. Lectures will keep coming in from there. It will be basics to begin with, but you might still learn something, especially when we come to installing multiple versions of Blender. Jan is working on Canopy cars again in the next couple of days, probably by the end of the week. That will be accessible to lifetime members as well.
Beginning will be accessible to lifetime members.
Yes,
I'm
the
not
beginning of the
promising
course.
I'll have the entire course in 2 days. I want to be very clear on that.
Yes. Mag Racer stuff, if you want to come over to our Patreon and see what's going on there.
Asked a question that we missed earlier. Where's the Blender 2.79 content? Where can I see it? Where's it? I want to see it.
I don't have any access to the Blender 2.79 content. So you'll have to contact Game Dev about that. I think, if I'm right, there is an archive course, but I don't have access to that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about leaving a company is that they don't let you keep the keys. It's a bit like moving house, you know.
Yes, in terms of that, I mean, I don't have. Obviously, I've still got some videos, but I don't have actual access rights to give you with that without getting into some sort of trouble, probably. So,
Ask GDTV.
Any other questions? Yes, ask Game Dev TV. I'm sure Jelly could put you in the right direction. Probably Lucy at Game Dev is the person to contact, or used to be. And what else have we got? We've got the Mag Racer stuff, Lifetime Back stuff, and then I think that's it, isn't it?
I think that is.
Yeah. I didn't actually make any notes, but there we go.
No, and I'm feeling very woozy, so I didn't make any notes either.
Woozy. What have you been drinking?
I'm teetotal.
A lack of coffee. That's what it is. It's tiredness coming in.
It's surplus of pain, to be honest. Throughout this entire thing, I've had these two sharp stabby pains in my head.
Yeah. Too much coffee. I've been quite good with coffee today. I've only had one, so I've only lost it once.
Too much coffee?
Yeah, definitely. If I approach 10 shots worth of coffee in a day, I'll get a stonking headache.
If I don't have 3 or 4 cups of coffee by noon, I'll have migraines for the day. However, these migraines are not caffeine related, so because I know caffeine migraines, and these aren't them.
Yeah, gotta watch out on that caffeine. Have we got any other questions? I don't see any on my chat. Nice. So thank you everybody for joining us. If you've got any questions, be sure to reach out. Join us over on the Discord for chatting about stuff during the week. We've got various channels over there. And yeah, see you next week. Bye! Now I click end stream. And it's still not ended yet. Now I click end.